Let's bring the PlayStation 2 into 2024. Unlike my father, the PlayStation 2 has been a mainstay through my teenage years and into adulthood. And if you're wondering, I am going to find a way to work my childhood trauma into every single one of these videos I do. Because why pay for therapy when I can just make TikTok videos? The PlayStation 2 was the console that established Sony as a dominant force in gaming, because while the PlayStation 1 was a massive success, the PlayStation 2 shattered sales record and still holds the top spot for most hardware units sold. Now, my focus is going to be drop-in solutions. I want to create a video that's for the masses. So in order to modernize a console, we need to tackle 3 issues. 1, we need an alternative way to boot games. 2, we need wireless controllers. And 3, we need to have some kind of upscaling so the PS2 actually looks good on a modern HD TV. Now, I will mention that there are some very advanced solutions for those of you who would like to take a crack at those, and I will mention those alternatives when it comes up. But my goal is to make something that's obtainable for everyone watching. My goal is also to maintain as much of the original PlayStation form factor as we can. Now, this first step is completely optional, and you do not have to do it. If you have a perfectly working PS2, I probably would advise you against even doing this, but it's no secret that the hardware is getting up there in years. The first PlayStation 2 came out in 2001, so these things are getting to be well over 20 years old. You may want to consider replacing the power supply. A lot of consoles have modern power supply unit replacements out there now, and we have one called the PS2 in this one. And for the record, I will be working on a PS2 Fat model because that is the absolute easiest one to work on. But to replace a PSU, we just have to open our PlayStation 2, and it's not too difficult. We're going to need to turn our PlayStation 2 upside down, we're going to need a plastic spudger of some type, and a Phillips screwdriver. To get these rubber and plastic tabs off, all you need to do is wedge your spudger in there, twist, and pop it off. That last one felt like that episode of Family Guy where he was trying to get the frog out of the window. Jesus, that was annoying. Once our screws are exposed, then all we gotta do is take our screwdriver and get them out. I'll go ahead and save you 10 seconds here. It's magic. Now, I highly recommend you make sure you keep organized with these screws here because it's real easy to lose track. So once we get those bottom screws out, the lid to our PS2 should lift off and we're gonna gently remove it. And the reason I want you to gently remove it is because there's a ribbon cable attached from the lid to the motherboard, and you don't want to accidentally break that by yanking this off too hard. Now, one thing you might also notice about this PS2 is that there's no optical drive. What gives? Well, truth be told, we're going to add a hard drive to this PS2, making the optical drive completely optional. Now, obviously, if you have your physical games that you still want to play, you're going to want to keep the optical drive in there. The optical drive on this one had already failed, and there was no point in keeping it in. The PlayStation 2 actually works just fine without it, so I just removed it. Now, in order to get to the power supply, we have to get this out of the bottom shell. It should be as simple as just removing these 2 screws here, and then gently lifting it. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and show you the PS2 unit in. The original power supply actually took up this whole section. The PS2 plugs right into here, and then just requires you to slot in a new port for the power supply. And this 12-volt power supply will plug into the PlayStation 2 now and power it up. I should also note that there are Sega Saturn and Dreamcast power supply replacements too, and this same adapter should work for those. And then through the power of editing magic, we've reassembled our PS2. Now, what do we need for the rest of our steps? We need a free McBoot memory card. We need a SATA hard drive adapter. And we need a hard drive. This is a 2.5-inch hard drive. The 3.5-inch hard drives also work. If you use a 2.5-inch hard drive adapter, they make these lovely little brackets for them that help hold it into place. As a side note, I know I'm going to get questions about using a solid-state drive. I really don't recommend it. I think it's a waste of money. The PS2 is incapable of taking advantage of the SSD speeds, so you're really just putting a more expensive memory device in there when a hard drive is going to work completely fine. For the free McBoot memory card, you can actually make your own. I would suggest you not waste the time. They are a couple dollars, and it's all done for you. This houses all the applications we need for our PlayStation 2. We are going to need some way to hook that hard drive up to the PC. If you don't want to spend money on an external hard drive reader, you can check within your PC and see if you have extra SATA connections that you could take advantage of. First thing we're going to need to do with our new hard drive is open up a program called HDL Batch Installer. Please note that you're going to want to run it as an administrator. If you want to know where to find HDL Batch Installer, IS Wrap's GitHub page HDL-Batch-Installer. Two windows will open up. One's a command line interface and the other is a graphical interface. We're only going to work in the graphical interface but leave the command line interface open. First thing we're going to do is go to Format HDD. This assumes that you've never done this before. If you've already formatted your PS2 HDD and you're just adding games or your artwork or something like that, you could skip this step. Now, after you click that, every hard drive you have hooked up to this system is going to show up. Make sure you know which one you're picking for this format. In my case, it's this ASM1156. We're going to hit Format. You're going to get some scary warnings, and it's going to ask you about 3 times if you really want to do this. If everything goes according to plan, you should get this message. Okay, so in order to add games to the hard drive, we're going to click Search Games here down on the right. Go to the folder where your PS2 games are stored, select the games you want to install, and then go ahead and click Open. You'll see the list of games to install pop up right here. Go ahead and go back to the right here and click the Install button. How long this will take will depend on how many games you're installing. So once those are installed, you're all done with HDL Batch Installer. Next, we're going to want to open a program called OPL Manager. We're going to want to run it as an administrator. OPL Manager can be found on oplmanager.com. Once OPL Manager is open, it'll look like this. Go to Local HDD Options, hit Get Game List, and then click OK. Now, if you just want to play the games, you can stop here, you little underachiever. However, if you want to get art and make the whole UI look really good on the PS2, keep following. So we're going to go ahead to Batch Actions, and we're going to open Art Download. Just go ahead and check every box and hit Start. And then watch as OPL works its magic and downloads all of the cover art, game art, and screenshots, whatever else you could really want. Once that download's complete, go to Open OPL Folder and let it open up the location where it's storing all of those art files. It'll be right here, Art. Open it up and you'll see all the files you just downloaded. Go ahead, right-click the art folder and hit Copy. Now, the easiest way to get these on the PlayStation 2 is going to be using a USB stick. So allow me to go rummage around my crap and see if I can pull one out of my ass. And as luck would have it, I found one in this pile of junk over here. And we'll plug her in the PC. Make sure it's already formatted in FAT32. And then I can just go ahead and paste that folder here. And good news, we are done with the computer. Go ahead, close out of everything. We'll remove our hard drive and USB stick. Now we'll take our hard drive and slot it into this optional support bracket. Go ahead and plug it into our hard drive adapter here. Then our adapter can slide right into the expansion bay. Next, we're going to want to slot in our FreeMcBoot memory card into slot 1. Now, I want to park my lazy ass over here on this couch to play my TV all the way over there. I'm going to need a wireless controller for that. For that, I'm going to use these Blue Retro Bluetooth adapters. And I'm going to use it with a Bluetooth PS4 controller because I love the way these feel. So let's go ahead and plug the adapter in. Next, we're going to talk about upscaling because the PS2 does not look great on HD TVs without any kind of upscaling. I will be using a Retrotink 5X. There are alternatives like the 2X or other products out there that can accomplish this. If you don't want to do any upscaling, it's recommended that you use PS2 component cables. I'll do a separate video on the optimized settings on the Retrotink 5X. I don't have enough time to do that in this video. There is a hard mod out there that can install HDMI output directly to your PS2 called the Pixel FX. However, it does require advanced soldering. And the last thing I'm going to do is plug the USB stick in. Now let's fire it on. As you can see here, I connected the controller to the Blue Retro adapter, and now it should function just like a PS2 controller. First thing we're going to do is open OPL. Once you're loaded in, go ahead and hit the Start button to go to Menu. And go ahead and hit the X button to go to Settings. You are going to want to set the bottom options here to Off Auto, Off HDD Games. Next, scroll down to Display Settings, hit the X button. We're going to want to go ahead and turn all of these on. Now when you go back to this menu, make sure you scroll down to Save Changes and select it. We are almost there. Go ahead and power off your PlayStation 2, power it back on. From the FreeMcBoot menu, go to ULaunch ELF. Hit Circle for File Browser. Navigate down to MASS, hit the Circle button. You'll see your art folder here, hit the R1 button. X button to copy. Hit Triangle to go back. Navigate up to HDD0, hit the Circle button. Go to your OPL partition, hit the Circle button. Hit R1 again, and we're going to go ahead and paste it. We do want to overwrite the art file. You'll see we're getting blazing speeds of 134 kilobytes per second. And once everything's copied over, we're going to go ahead, reset, boot back into OPL, and now all my artwork is loaded. And that, my friends, is how we modernize the PS2 for 2024.